Welcome back to the shop, everyone. This week's video takes place in 2025, week 47, November 17th through 23rd, and I am so sorry to everybody for missing my upload last week. I was out of town for work, and prior to that, I was busy doing a bunch of other stuff, and it just got away from me. So, again, apologize to you and our overlords, the algorithm, for missing last week's upload. But hopefully I get back to a regular schedule here, although we are going into Christmas and stuff. But I have some stuff filmed, even if it's not a lot, so we should be able to keep the videos rolling. Let's see here. I am working on the firewall. So there was when I did the mounts for the heater box, I welded, and those welds, penetrated, so I just kind of cleaned those down. And now there's some holes in the firewall. I want to get all of those taken care of. There were some really, really deep spots, so I want to fill it up with a little bit of metal and then kind of get it as smooth as I can. This firewall is not going to be perfectly flat. I have come to grips with that. I'm okay with that, but I do want to make it a little bit better. When I do a tiny bit of skim coat of Bondo, I don't want a ton of Bondo. I'm okay with a little bit. And with a little bit, if it's not perfect, I'll live with that. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm just going to, do what I usually do. Weld, grind, repeat, do that fun thing. So what do we do after we've been grinding for a while? We clean up the shop because it is a mess. And believe it or not, as I'm walking around, I can actually feel all the grit through my shoes, and it really annoys me. And actually, it's slippery too, so it's actually kind of dangerous sometimes. So let's just get this all cleaned up. All right, so I did quite a bit of, clean up there on the chassis. Like I took the air gun and I blew out all the frame rails and the cowl and everything out and everything else and around there. I just took off the the driver's side hinge for the hood. I'm cleaning all of the kind of silicone, the sealant that they use, and there's a reason for that. But just kind of hang around for a little bit and you'll see why. But yeah, so just kind of cleaning up the firewall, getting it sanded down, and then you'll see here in a second what I'm gonna do. So, got this nice new tool from Eastwood. It's a Contour SET. With the drum that I have on there, it makes stripping paint really quick and painless and nice. And even though like it does still take me a while, it is way quicker than if I was like sanding it with an orbital or anything like that. So I really like that tool. I like the wheel that I got on it. And I am planning to use that on the body at some point in time. But for now, we're just focusing on the engine bay and the cowl area. So just trying to get all the things out of here that I don't need. Like I don't need the wiper arms installed right now. I don't need the plates on the inside, and I did something stupid there. I dropped it on the ground and that one's flimsy, so it bent. But yeah, so I don't need these in the car right now. And as I'm going through this, I kind of realized, I was like, I'm cleaning up the firewall, getting this ready, and then I realized I need to swap out the engine plate mounting tabs. So that's kind of what I'm cleaning up around right now. Those are the old ones. I got a couple of new ones. I kind of prepped them in a previous video, and I was like, oh crap, yeah, I gotta put those on. But first I'm going to finish cleaning up as much as I can, just getting everything prepped. And then once I get everything prepped, then I can go ahead and switch out those engine plate tabs. As I was, cleaning up and stuff, I looked over at these tabs that mount the inner frame rail plate, and I realized they're just tacked on right now. So gonna clean everything up, weld them on there fully. That way I can continue on with the project that I'm doing. But yeah, I need these welded on fully before I can continue. So what I'm doing here is I am just wiping down all the metal. This is some wax and degreaser. Wax and degreaser, or wax remover and degreaser. So just cleaning up all the metal and cleaning up all of the parts of this so that we can get ready to prime this thing. I really want this thing in primer. The frame, or quite a bit of this has been rusting and developing rust, so I really want to get to a point where this is primed. I can keep working on it through the winter. If there's a little bit more moisture, I'm not too stressed about it. So that's the goal for this session in the shop, or for this week in the shop, is to get this front end primed. But to do that, I need to replace those engine mount tabs, as I mentioned. So why am I doing that? Well, these tabs worked pretty good initially, but then I ended up having to lift the engine up a little bit because it was hitting on the steering rack, so that it was just sitting way too low. So I had to move it up a tiny bit. You can kind of see on the passenger side one at the top left corner, it's kind of mangled, and that's because I had to drill a hole through it, and I bolted it together, and it just kind of squeezed together, and it wasn't great. So that's one of the reasons I'm doing it. I'm also making the new ones a slight bit bigger, a little bit heavier duty. Even though these ones held just fine without issue, I just wanted to make them a little bit thicker, that way I can get a little bit more heat in the weld, and hopefully it holds better. And I mean, it took quite a bit to cut these old ones off, so I was quite happy with my fabrication skills there, I guess. And as I said, it held, nothing broke, so I think we should be good to go once I get the new ones on. I measured where these ones were before, so hopefully I get the new ones in the same spot. I'm also going to make sure that the new ones are angled correctly for installing the engine. It'll be the same angle as I put the motor plate brackets in at. So in theory, the engine and the transmission should be angled correctly. All of the mounts should line up. As long as I didn't screw this up too bad. I kind of want to pull the old engine out and just kind of get it sitting in place with the engine plate and the mid plate, and just make sure that is all lined up and correctly angled. But I probably won't do that. I mean, we'll see. I got time. I don't have to stress about that right now. I do want to have that solidified before I paint, though, because once I paint, yes, I can cut it off, I can repaint, but that's a lot of hassle. So we'll see. Who knows? I may even just leave it primed for this season. I don't know. We'll see. Haven't fully decided yet. Long story short, I'm getting some new engine plate tabs installed. Sweet. Now that the engine tabs are installed, we can move over to spraying some rust inhibitor in this engine bay. So I'm going to take my small spray gun here. I'm going to use some, I think it's blue steel. It's a rust inhibitor, and I'm just going to spray it on the car. They say you should really roll it on and kind of like work it into the metal, but I think spraying it on is probably just fine. At least I'm happy enough with it. And the reason why I'm putting the rust inhibitor down first is if I just primed straight over rust, chances are that rust would come back through. But if I do some rust inhibitor and let it dry, the theory is hopefully that does not come through the paint. And so a lot of this metal is fresh, but you know what? I'm just going to cover everything. It's going to get all the nooks and crannies. I'm going to focus more on where there is some rust, but I can spray all of it and hopefully it doesn't hurt anything. I did some reading. You're supposed to just be able to prime right over it. So that is what I'm going with. And so I'm pulling the hinges off because underneath those hinges there's a lot of rust, and since I'm spraying some rust inhibitor, I might as well spray it now while I'm in there. And then you'll eventually hopefully see it goes on kind of like green bluish. That's probably why it's called blue steel. And then when it dries, it really dries as like a black, and especially in the areas where there was rust, it actually becomes like a very dark black color, and you can see, oh yeah, okay, that really converted. So I like this stuff. I used it on the diff before I did the diff, and it seemed to work well enough. So I think I'm gonna have great success. Hopefully the paint doesn't fly off, but you never know. So here's, the next day I've let it dry. You can see some of the areas where it's super dark, and that's where it converted rust a lot more. Some of the areas where it's just kind of like grayish, it didn't do much. Yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm trying to make the cowl a little bit smoother with some hammer and dolly work. I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing here, though, so, in some cases I'm just making this worse, especially since there's like some weld on the backside, so I'm not even hammering and dollying it flat. But there was a couple of areas where I was like, I'm going to get the torch, I'm going to heat it up a bit, and that's going to help me move the metal around. It did make it a little bit better, I feel, but it's still not perfect. So I'm still getting some Bondo and some skim coat, but I tried. Realized I'm just not good at this, and I don't have enough time to really be good. But I was happy enough with how it came out. I'm not sad about it. I'm not, gonna cut all the metal out and redo it or anything, which is probably what I should have done, but whatever. It is what it is. All right, and with that, we are going to throw some primer on this front end. So I have this high build primer. It was really coming out of the gun super thick, so I really should have thinned it out a little tiny bits, but I didn't. I made it work. It's stuck. It's a high build, so I think I should be able to get a good amount of sanding out of it and make it pretty nice and clear. But yeah, so I'm just gonna mix it up. I really don't know how much to use for this, so I start out small, and then I end up having to add a ton more. Also, this paint has been sitting, so it is really thick on the bottom, so you'll see that I'm actually at this with the stir stick for a while. It felt like 10 plus minutes in real time. I don't know how long it was, but it was a while. But I got it all mixed back together, and it was happy as could be, I guess. So yeah, it's really thick coming out of the gun. I get it on there. I think I end up doing 3 coats just because it wasn't really covering all that well, because it was really thick and it wasn't coming out of the gun as nice as it should have. But we eventually get it all covered. I can't see any of the initial metal. I think I have enough that I can sand. If needed, after I sand, if I burn through anywhere, I can put some more on and I'll thin it out next time. But yeah, just gonna do some painting. Well, folks, with that cleanup, that is all the time that we have for this week. So, as always, if you have stuck around this long, I'd like to thank you for viewing, and we'll see you in the next one.